Welcome to today's RUC People. I'm delighted to be joined by Joshua Gaunt, who has been with us at RUC for, I think, a few months now.
A year.
A year.
Just over a year.
Just over a year. So welcome, Josh. Great to have you join us.
Good to be here, Russell.
Yeah. So Josh, tell us, I know you're originally from the Eastern Cape. What are you doing in Cape Town, and what brought you here?
I am studying medicine at UCT. I'm currently in my second year, hoping to finish that soon.
Right.
I came here in 2021, or at the end of 2021, moved in to Res,
Okay.
which is where I'm staying.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, and how are you finding it so far?
I'm enjoying varsity a lot. I've come from a very different background to the average kind of white male, and actually coming to Cape Town has been a really pleasant experience, getting to meet so many people my age and finding a home here.
Okay, so you're staying in Res, studying medicine, and how are you finding the studies and how are you finding life at UCT?
The studies have been okay, actually. Medicine it's got a reputation to be really difficult, but I found my first year quite enjoyable, actually, academically. Second year has been a bit harder,
Right.
but I'm definitely enjoying it. And I think the more that I do medicine, the more I find it something I want to do.
That's a good thing, that you don't arrive and think, my goodness, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
And, Okay. All right, Josh, so let's go back a bit further. So tell us about your family, your parents, and where you were born, where you grew up.
I come from a family with 4 children. I'm one of 4. I've got 3 younger siblings.
All right, so you're the oldest.
I'm the oldest, yes.
Okay.
They're all still in school at the
Okay.
moment. My parents are currently in Port Alfred in the Eastern Cape, but we lived in a little village in the Transkei, the old former Transkei, for 17 years. And that's where I spent most of my childhood growing up. But my parents are originally my dad's from Cape Town and my mom's from northern KZN.
Okay, and what do they do?
They're actually both doctors.
Both doctors, so you come from a proud tradition
Seems to be running in the family so far.
I see. What kind of medicine do they do?
They're both general practitioners. They worked in a rural hospital for many years, and so specializing wasn't really particularly necessary, but you could say they're rural healthcare specialists.
Okay, right. Okay, and so growing up in rural Eastern Cape, how was that? That must have been very interesting.
It certainly was. When my parents arrived there in 2005, we were one of the only sort of white or professional families coming into this rural village at the time. And so that was obviously difficult for me. But the community grew and grew and grew, and I sort of learned to integrate into the Xhosa community there, as well as the English-speaking, Afrikaans-speaking professional community. It was a fascinating interaction of 2 cultures in a rural setting. And it had an incredible community, a close-knit community that I could be part of. And I was joined by countless other families with their own kids as well. So it quickly moved from being a more isolated childhood to one that I really look back on with fondness.
And what was school like? What kind of school did you attend?
My mom homeschooled us.
Really?
All the way through, from the very beginning, sitting on the carpet and reading books with her, to switching to online school later on for high school, where she sort of hung around in the background and helped us whenever we were struggling, but we sort of took it more into our own hands.
Wow, so you've never actually been to school?
The first time I stepped foot into a real school building was in my matric exams.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, and you've only ever had one teacher, your mum.
Yes.
And does that mean your mum had to, learn to be a history teacher and an English teacher and a
Yes,
physics
she always
teacher?
said she did a lot of learning as well as us.
My goodness.
We were learning through life, is what we called it.
And she was teaching all 4 of you?
Yes, to a lesser extent the younger ones, but definitely me and my older sister and my older brother as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you said she's a doctor. It sounds like she was a full-time teacher with all of you lot. I mean,
Part-time doctor, part-time teacher, that's for sure.
Sure.
She taught us in the mornings and then left at about 1 p.m. to go and work in the hospital. So
right.
pretty impressive.
And was that a decision because the local schools were not of a sufficient standard?
It's one of the poorest education areas in the country.
Yeah.
And I think it would have been very difficult in that they're entirely Xhosa schools. I think culturally it would have been difficult, language-wise it would have been difficult. But actually later on, in about grade 7, 8 for myself, I went to an afternoon class program that was run by a local education NGO, Axiom,
Yes.
Axiom Education, and they ran an afternoon program with the local schools. So I actually almost did get a taste of the local education atmosphere there, and that's where I learned to speak Xhosa as well.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, you know, if you're being homeschooled, how do you then integrate with other kids? And, you know, is it quite isolating? And because you're saying you did feel very connected to the community, I'm thinking, I guess, but you're home every day with your mum, you know, how did that sort of play out?
It took a lot of personal effort. You're not there at school every day with your friends.
Exactly.
And I must say, in the last few years of high school, grade 11 and grade 12, it became really difficult after COVID as well.
Yeah.
I ended up sort of sitting by myself in the office doing online school with very little social engagement, which is why coming to varsity was such a pleasant experience.
Exactly. But, you know, growing up, did you have a lot of, you know, close friends and...
Yes, I did. I wouldn't say the largest group of closer friends, but I had a sort of smaller, closer group of closer friends. And over the years, I sort of would have one kind of close friend that we would do stuff together. And I think because I was quite shy, it was harder for me to just sort of walk out and go to the street and say hi to my friends and start kicking a ball around, which is what I think you know, future generations have done.
Okay. And did you find that the also young people were accepting you well? And, you know...
For sure.
Yeah.
Especially more so over the years, I think, as they got used to this sort of integrated community.
And that must have been quite a learning thing to, you know, to embrace that culture, you know, very different to your own, I'm sure. Although if your parents had been in that community for a long time, I'm sure they were very attuned to the issues and the... Yeah. Okay. And so the desire to study medicine, was this sort of, you know, passed through genetically, or how did you come to the point of thinking, actually, I want to be a doctor?
I was very much indecisive. Even through grade 12, I was not sure. I think because it's sometimes difficult to follow in your parents' footsteps because you feel like you're just copying someone, and you've got a reputation to fill. And I think they did create quite a big reputation. Zitulele Hospital, which is where I grew up, became known quite well in the South African rural doctor circles and rural health circles. And so I thought, gosh, I can't just do the same thing. But I think I gradually realized that whatever I choose to study, whether it's medicine or teaching or computer science, I was interested in computer science, I would do well at it and I would enjoy it because I sort of fit in easily with whatever it is. And so I did apply for medicine, and when I got accepted, I said to myself, gosh, this is an opportunity that I'm not going to get again. Very few people get accepted into medicine. And so I took it knowing that I've got an amazing background and role models to work with as well. Having grown up in that sort of community that was almost kind of circling around the hospital, I knew a lot of doctors and a lot of OTs and physios that I still have contact with.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. And did you apply in various universities to study medicine? Was UCT your first choice or your only choice? Or?
I only got accepted here. I did apply to several.
Wow.
but I'm glad I got accepted here. I think I've got family here in Cape Town, so
Right.
it makes sense to be
And
here.
you'd been to Cape Town before you came here to live?
Yeah.
You know, you said your dad's originally from
Yes.
Cape Town.
Yes.
So, okay. And how's the transition been, you know, coming from rural Eastern Cape to the big city of Cape Town and, you know, the big institution of UCT, you know, homeschool to UCT, diverse, vibrant.
Residents as well, yeah.
How's that been?
I thoroughly enjoyed it. I was very nervous for starters. I remember flying on the plane into Cape Town and thinking, oh dear, what's going to happen? Or am I going to be able to socially integrate? But I kind of faked it till I made it, in a way. I put on the most social Josh I could muster, and I made a lot of friends from the get-go at Res. I sat down with the table of guys and just spoke and, you know, asked people questions about them. I realized someone gave me the tip. They said, if you're shy, direct the conversation to the other person. Ask them about themselves so that you don't have to do too much talking. And I did that, and I think that was a critical tool to make a lot of connections initially. And then from then on, I've actually realized maybe I'm a bit more of an extrovert than I thought.
Well, the thing is, I suppose at university, you know, you're not just, and particularly in Res, I would think you're not dealing largely with Cape Townians, people who are born and bred here. They're fellow expats, if you like.
That's
people
very
coming
true.
in from other places. So
Even Eastern Capers and closer people that I think I was able to integrate actually almost more easily into the Xhosa and Zulu and more the black community at Res than the white kids, which was an interesting thing.
Well, they're probably
to see.
very impressed that you speak, you know, their language very fluently, because that would be a rarity, I would assume.
It's definitely a rarity.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I just put myself out there and it worked.
Yeah. Well, that's great. And are you from a faith tradition? I mean, were your parents Christian and were you brought up, you know, as a Christian?
Very much so. I think a lot of the ethos behind even working in a rural area originated from a sense of calling that my parents had.
Was it a particular denomination?
So my dad was part of the Presbyterian Church in Mowbray, and then I think in Varsity they ended up at more of the student churches, the more charismatic churches. And when they came to Situlele, there was very little to build on in terms of a church. They went for a few years to the local Xhosa church, but obviously that was really difficult. It was done in Xhosa, and they were still learning Xhosa at that stage. And so they sort of started up a weekly cell group, which molded into a weekly church meetup on Sunday, which molded into no longer being at our house because we couldn't fit everyone in. So we moved to the community center, and it sort of established itself as more of a church.
Right.
So I always went there. We used to play guitar and sing songs, and it was very informal. Initially, we were almost hesitant to call it a church. I think we called it the Experiment for a while.
Okay. Come and join us at the Experiment.
The Experiment, yes. But that was a really incredible place to be, because it was a diverse group of people as well that were coming in, and you know it was a welcoming space. You can, if you are a Christian, come and join us. There weren't denominations to pick and choose from there, so yeah, it was special to be part of that tradition.
And you mentioned, you know, your connection with Axiom, which has strong links with RUC. Is that how you know? I was going to ask, how did you find your way here to RUC?
To RUC, I had heard about it. I think through some Axiom connections, and through some previous people that had come here, that had ended up in Situlele. But I'm trying to remember what actually brought me here. I think it was the brass band concert. That's a great recruiting tool, by the way.
Really?
Yes. It was the week after the brass band I went to the brass band concert.
This is last year's one? Okay.
And then I decided, this is the place to come. Let me see what the actual congregation was like. So, yeah, that was what first brought me here. But then I discovered, oh, wow, there's so many connections to Situlele,
Yes.
which was quite encouraging.
Yes, okay. That's interesting. So how did you even come to the brass band concert initially?
Friend
Friend,
told me about it.
someone invited you and you came along.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. There you go. And how have you found it being here at RUC?
I've really enjoyed it. I think I've been searching for a long time for a place where I can dig deeper theologically, a place that's maybe slightly different, a little bit, where there's a bit more critical thinking in a way. And I found that in other churches. I went to Jubilee for quite a long time last year, but I wasn't able to ask questions to a large extent. And when I came here and I listened to Robert speaking, I felt that this is a place where they explore deep questions about faith and about God, and also a place where it felt really connected to what was going on in the country and even in the congregation. I was really inspired by the discussions that were held here. And also, I think the slightly smaller size was appealing to me because, as I've explained, I wasn't coming from a big student pumping church with a big band.
Yeah.
So singing all together, singing hymns where there's just one person on the piano,
Yeah.
or the euphonium, then I think that also clicked with me. So.
Okay, lovely. And Josh, you've got a long road ahead of you with your medical studies. This is a 6-year course and you're in year 2.
Yes.
So long way to go. And then, I guess you start as an intern and, ridiculous hours and a long time before you're actually fully going as a doctor. Yeah. Do you have a sense at this stage what kind of medicine you'd like to be involved with? And, do you see yourself going back to the Eastern Cape, staying here in Cape Town or in another big city?
I think I'm very much still thinking about it. But there is definitely a pull towards rural medicine, which is what inspired me to choose medicine in the first place. And I have an incredible number of connections to people who've worked in rural.
Some in this congregation as well. I guess you've met some of them already.
Yeah. Yes. And so I think that remains an inspiration to me. I don't know what I'll do straight after varsity. Maybe I'll spend a year or 2 working in the city or working overseas, but there's definitely a pull to come back to the rural areas of South Africa. I don't know whether that will be the Eastern Cape or whether it'll be some other rural province in the country. I'd love to do a bit more exploring before I sort of settle somewhere.
You've got a few years to work it out, I think.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Do you have a particular area of medicine that you're feeling drawn to?
Not yet, to be honest. I've really enjoyed everything that I've done so far, but it's been very theory-based. We haven't done a lot of practical stuff in hospitals, doing blocks and rotations and things, so I guess I'll decide that later on.
Yeah, and I guess you don't have to make too many decisions yet. It's
not at all.
Yeah, okay. And outside of church and study, what does fun look like? What do you like doing with yourself? What makes you smile?
Yes, I think outdoors is a big thing. I do cycling. I do a little bit of running, hiking with friends on the weekends. I'm not one of those people who's an avid cyclist or an avid runner or I'm not very good at keeping myself on a regular running schedule or whatever. But I go with friends whenever there's an invite to go somewhere outdoors. And I often enjoy playing music.
What instrument do you play?
A little bit of piano, a little bit of guitar, but mostly singing.
Okay.
In fact, I've joined the Rondebosch United Choir, so getting a bit of voice training there.
I'm sure you'd be most welcome. Yeah. Okay, cool. And do you get back to the Eastern Cape? Are you still seeing your parents a bit? Do they come and visit you?
Surprisingly, quite a lot for a varsity student. I guess varsity students do get long holidays, so I think I've been back 3 times this year already. So I haven't been back to the village, Jizitulele, for a while. But I'd really like to keep up going there. So my family's moved out of Situlele. They moved out last year to Port Alfred.
Yes, which is a slightly bigger centre, I think.
Yeah, also for school for my siblings.
Right.
Where online school wouldn't necessarily work as well. So it's quite accessible. It's literally, I think, 1.5 hours from Port Elizabeth and 1.5 hours from East London. So you can catch a plane to either side and drive there. It's lovely seeing them. We're a very close-knit family.
Wonderful. Great. And are you a reader? What kind? Do you get time to read in addition to medicine textbooks?
I wish I was a reader. I'm very bad at reading. I struggle to get into books, whether it's novels or whether it's non-fiction. But I think it's a goal of mine. I was recently speaking to a friend saying, Wonderbosch Library is right there. After church, I'm going to the library because I need a limit, a deadline to have read the book by. Otherwise, it just sits there. Yeah.
Okay. And Josh, I mean, what's been the toughest thing you've had to deal with so far, would you say? And how did you manage to get over it?
It's a good question. I think growing up in the very closer community that I did, I was initially very shy, as I said. And so I struggled to learn Xhosa as a language when I was younger. I learned the words. I could understand basic sentences and instructions and questions, but I never gained confidence in actually speaking it. And then in about grade 7, my mum said to me, there's this afternoon class thing that I told you about earlier, and I must go. And there was one person I knew in the whole group, and I think there were 3 grades. Each grade had about 20 kids. And she came with me and dropped me off. They were having a boot camp at the time, so it was sort of a week of fun and games and extra math lessons and extra English lessons, etc. And so she just dropped me there. I found the one person I knew, and I kind of sat in the corner and was silent. But I kept going. She kept pushing, which I'm very grateful for, and I kept going. And I realized very quickly that, gosh, I've grown up in a deeply Xhosa community, and yet I can't really speak the language. I would sit there with 20 Xhosa kids all chatting to each other and me understanding half of what they're saying. And that was extremely difficult, yeah. That was probably the loneliest time as well. At that stage, I didn't have a lot of English friends either in the community. So I was there for 2 years. We went to afternoon classes 3 times a week. 2 or 3 times a week, I can't remember exactly. We did maths lessons, which was actually very helpful. I think I progressed quite quickly in math because of that. And we did English lessons, which was quite ironic because I was sitting there basically learning Xhosa in the Xhosa kids' English lesson. But I made friends through it in the end, and I gained a lot of confidence through it. So immersion is the best way to learn a language, and that was definitely immersion.
I'm sure. And the catalyst to begin learning the language in the first place, was it compulsory, or did you decide you would like to learn it?
It wasn't compulsory at all. I just really wanted to be able to communicate with these people that I was becoming friends with, but we were sort of at that stage of half Xhosa, half English mixing. My Xhosa is still not fluent, sadly, but I continue to really try putting myself out there and at least greeting the Xhosa people I know in Xhosa and starting the conversation off in Xhosa, whether it diverges to English soon or a bit later down the line.
Okay. And anything exciting on the horizon for you in particular? New things you're looking to do?
I've gotten involved in leadership of a society at UCT.
Okay.
Very aptly and unsurprisingly, the Rural Support Network, which is trying to promote rural healthcare at UCT. And it's kind of been my first real leadership position. I got a phone call from the previous chairperson at the beginning of the year saying, hi, I don't know if you remember, but I'm part of the society. you probably haven't heard much about it, but I was wondering whether you'd be keen to join the executive committee. So I hadn't been part of the society at all, but it had sort of gone through a lull from COVID, and they were trying to revive it again. So I became the vice chairperson of a society I'd never even been involved with.
Very swift promotion.
Very swift promotion. And it quickly became sort of a lot of work trying to create awareness about the society. But the main aim is to send students to rural areas, health sciences students,
Yes.
to rural hospitals throughout the country during their vacations.
Yeah.
So far, we sent students to Vredenburg Hospital up in the on the West Coast, and we've sent students to the recent Rural Health Conference, and we're hoping to send students this December, November holidays to one of the Eastern Cape hospitals. So it's a lot of organizing, but it's kind of fun actually. I'm enjoying slipping into leadership. I think it's been emulated through my parents a lot, and then I constantly phoning them for advice about how to organize a meeting and how to take minutes and all that sort of thing. I'm actually going to go for a meeting with the deanery later today, so I think it's sort of an exciting thing that is definitely on the horizon for the next few years leading.
Oh, wonderful. And I mean, it suggests, that the studies aren't too all-consuming at the moment, that you do have some time to come here and to be involved in a project like that.
Definitely. I think studies so far have been, I'm just doing what I need to do, and then closer to exams, I can do the stressing and cramming and everything that's needed to pass. So I've ended up with a lot more free time than I expected.
Well, that's good. I mean, here we are at the end of September and exams are approaching. You don't look too stressed to me.
No, we'll see. I think these exams are one of the hardest because we have to do 2 semesters worth of work in one exams. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. Yeah.
And plans for the summer break? Are you going back home or?
Yes. I recently started an online Xhosa teaching channel.
Wow.
So I think I'm going to put a bit of work into that. That's actually a good answer to your plans for the future. I had friends telling me, Josh, you need to teach more people Xhosa because it's really difficult to teach Xhosa if you've been a native Xhosa speaker your whole life.
Yes.
You haven't gone through the process of learning it from an English perspective, and I have. So I've ended up teaching a lot of my classmates who have to do Xhosa as part of their course. In medicine, you have to do Xhosa and Afrikaans. So I started an online TikTok and Instagram account.
Okay.
And to my surprise, it took off.
Wow.
I think I now have 27,000 followers on my TikTok. So,
are you monetizing this at all?
No. It's actually difficult to monetize TikTok in South Africa, surprisingly.
Wow. Maybe you should start one of these at RUC as well. There's probably a few people, myself included, that to our shame have never mastered the language. So.
It's very difficult, and it's difficult if you don't get exposure. So yeah, we'll have to think about that.
Sure. Cool. Well, thank you, Josh. It's been really interesting getting to know you, and it's great to have you as part of our community here. And I hope we'll be seeing you for a few years to come, at least another 5 or 6 while you're finishing your studies at UCT, just up the road. So, thank you so much.
No, it's been great to chat to you. I'm really enjoying Rondebosch United and getting to know the people here of all ages. I hope to see a bit more youth in the future.
Yes.
It's been fun, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Molweni, guys. We're going to be teaching you some Xhosa. How to say I, you, we, and you guys. And, of course, it. Like the tea or whatever you're talking about. And we're going to be using very simple Xhosa. In fact, it's more like English. We're going to be using English words that Xhosa people like to use, so that should be easy. Ni ready. Si ready. Okay. Alright.
Die right.
O grand.
Die grand. O serious.
Di serious.
O wrong.
Di wrong. Iti ready.
Is sweet, yo. Is sweet.
Is sweet. I fresh. I fresh. I fresh. Whatever.